Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most? And do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right. No extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
All right, welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Will Harvey. Will began his real estate career in 2015 as an award-winning residential loan officer at a national lender. Transitioning from direct investment, he founded his first real estate company in 2019 after building a personal portfolio of houses, rapidly gaining a comprehensive understanding of private syndications as both a limited and a general partner. The diverse hands-on experience has been instrumental in his current role, where he actively manages multiple funds. Will's unwavering commitment to shared success is underscored by his practice of personally investing alongside all partners in every venture. Will, welcome to The Wealth Flow.
Keith, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you, and I always love to start with your background, where you grew up, and what eventually led you to real estate investing.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town called Haymarket, Virginia. It's about 45 or so minutes outside of DC. And I guess from fast forwarding to how I got into real estate. So I'm a double college dropout. I dropped out of the University of South Carolina to get sober because I had a little too much fun down there. And then after I was home and focused, I ended up transferring and walking on and playing football for a short while to school in Ohio until I had double hip surgery, and that was the second dropout. So after the end of that, I came home and I was flirting around with going back to school to finish my degree, but ultimately I had an opportunity to start my career and get out into the mortgage business. So that's what I did. It was appealing to me because the thought of a fixed salary just didn't really resonate with me. And being a loan officer, it's similar to being a real estate agent in the sense that your income is uncapped. It's commission based. It's pure commission. So, you get out of it what you put in. So that was very appealing to me as a single 22-year-old knucklehead with no wife, no kids, no responsibilities. I could just work all the time, and that's pretty much what I did. And I grew that. Grew my loan officer business and did that. Was originating in 17, 18, and 19. Acquired a few residential properties during that time, and also realized that I hated being a landlord. Didn't like dealing with tenants and just all the fun stuff that goes along with landlording. So I ended up sort of pivoting, and with a partner, we started a house flipping company. I left the mortgage business at the end of 2019, started a house flipping company, and my strategy for a few years was generate cash from flipping houses, and then use that to invest as a limited partner in various syndications. So mainly apartments. Apartments are what I really knew at the time and liked, and that was my focus. But I did do a few, mobile home park deal here and there, and it was great because I was earning active income as a house flipper, where you get no love from the IRS
Right.
flipping houses. It's taxed as ordinary income, but because I'm considered a full-time real estate investor, I could use the bonus depreciation that I would get from these syndications to offset that income, and it was a pretty cool strategy. And so I did that for a while, and then I did a couple deals as a general partner. So we still own a boutique hotel and a wedding venue. So I own those with some partners. But over time, I just sort of migrated slowly but surely more and more to the finance side of things. I realized that I just don't really like being an operator. I don't like, some guys love that. We we loan money to guys that have hundreds of houses, and they just love that. They love the chaos of it. They love, just having all those houses and the cash flow, and that just wasn't for me. It's not. I don't. I would much rather sit behind my computer in an Excel spreadsheet than be running
Yeah.
around fixing toilets and dealing with contractors, and so that's sort of where I migrated to. And I started a small friends and family fund in 2023. And we had some cash laying around, and this old coworker of mine from the mortgage business called me, and he's like, "Hey, I have this guy. He's from Ghana, and he can't really show or qualify for anything. He can't show income and qualify for a conventional loan, but he's got a lot of money. He makes a lot of money. He was putting down 75% on this $1 million house, and in the same city that I lived in, which is a good area in Northern Virginia, and he he was like, so all he needs is a 25% LTV loan, and
Wow.
he's willing to pay hard money rates. And before he got done finishing asking me, I was like, yeah, I'm in. That's a no-brainer. So that was the start of our hard money business. It was sort of accidental, and for the first couple years, I just waited for the phone to ring. We did about 10 loans, so not too many. That fund wasn't really designed for that, but I realized that the returns are really strong, and it's a good business to be in. It fits my temperament very well. So last year, I started a dedicated hard money fund, and that's where a lot of my time goes to now.
Okay. Very interesting. So it sounds like you've done a little bit of everything. I want to maybe go back a little bit to some of the kind of initial syndications you did, and maybe what you learned from each of those. It sounds like initially you were buying some single family homes and putting renters in them initially, and then from there sounds like maybe going to syndication on the apartment side. But tell us a little bit more about kind of your progression. A lot of times listeners out there, they're hearing your story, they're hearing other people's stories, and they're like, wow, this guy goes from being a loan officer to lending out money, and there's obviously a journey in between, and just be curious as to how you grew as a investor, along the way.
Yeah, yeah, good question. So, yeah, I mean, when I was in the mortgage business, I saw some people did some loans for people buying rental properties, and that was sort of all I knew. I just thought that, if you want to own real estate, you buy a rental property and you start there. But once like I said, I got to three rentals, and realized that it was just one, I was running out of my own money. I mean, every time I bought a house, I would basically drain my cash reserves and put it all into that house, and have to start from scratch again. And so that was one issue. And then the other was obviously, not just managing them wasn't fun. I had one tenant that would call me when a light bulb went out, and I had another tenant that never told me anything, and the property was just a mess, and I didn't know about it. So, you know, when I was actually learning, once I got to 3 houses, I started listening to podcasts, and I was trying to scale that because it was all I knew. It was all I knew existed. And I was listening to podcasts, and I just stumbled upon, apartment investing, and I was just hooked immediately. I started listening to all the different, apartment guys back in 2018. This is well before
Yeah.
COVID. And it was so interesting to me. And I just realized how, real estate is bought. It's a team sport. Once you get into the larger asset classes, it's a team sport. Whereas when you're buying townhouses like I was, that's a one player game.
Right.
And it was just cool to learn that, you can invest in real estate, you can get tax benefits, you can get, cash flow, you can get all the good stuff that goes along with it without having to swing a hammer and manage tenants and deal with anything. You can do it where your only responsibility as a limited partner is writing a check. And so that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me when I realized that, hey, there's a lot more to real estate than I thought there was. There's a ton, and I learn stuff all the time, and the more that I'm in real estate, I realize how little I know about real estate.
Right. Right. No,
There's just so many different strategies, and it's crazy.
yeah, that's true. Same here, and I get exposed to all kinds of stuff on the podcast, and it's like, I think I have a good grasp of the majority of it, but you hear something new, and there's always a new angle that people,
Exactly.
are out there working it and making it happen. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Exactly.
When you invested in the apartments, did you do it initially as a limited partner when you were exposed to it, or did you go through any kind of a program to kind of learn that, how to invest and how to potentially be a GP, or did you just sort of make the
I just kind of
transition?
jumped in. I did both. I was sort of a baby GP in a few deals where I was
Okay.
responsible for, some due diligence and raising capital. But I only did I think 3 deals in that regard, and I invested as a limited partner as well
Okay.
at that same time. But after that, I just did it as a limited partner. Like I said, I migrated more and more to the finance side of things, and I liked being a passive partner a lot more than an active one. So, that suited my temperament as what I enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah, and as long as you're with a good operator, you get all the same benefits,
That's the
and you don't,
key.
it's just wiring funds is about the most difficult aspect of things. That and your
That's
due
it.
diligence on who the operator is, and all that. But still, it is nice. And maybe for the audience, can you maybe explain a little bit about, some of the, I assume you did cost segregation studies and the accelerated depreciation, and that offset some of the active income that you were seeing as a real estate flipper, and so maybe kind of explain a little bit of how that works for the audience.
Yeah, sure. So when you buy a property or equipment, you're able to take a certain you divide it by a certain amount of years, and the IRS lets you take an expense every year for that amount. So for residential property, I believe that the typical depreciation, the amount of years is 27 and a half years. So if you bought a property for, let's say, $1 million, let's say $250,000 of that is land. Land is not depreciable, only the building is. So you're able to take 750,000, divide it by 27.5, and that's what you get every year as a deduction against any income that property generated. So bonus depreciation, or cost segregation is actually, it's not enforced, but you're actually, the IRS says you are supposed to do this. Nobody really does, because a lot of people don't know about it, but you're supposed to do it. They just don't enforce it, because if they did, they would be losing out on, tax revenue. So what you're supposed to do with a property when you buy it is you're supposed to go in and do what's called a cost segregation study, where you go and you put the different components of the property into different buckets. Like, some elements of the property are going to depreciate quicker than others. So those would go in the 5-year bucket, or the 10-year bucket, or the 15-year bucket. So, and then everything else that's not allowed to be included in that. And the IRS makes the rules on all this, and you want to make sure you get a good licensed cost seg expert to handle all this. But they basically break the property down into the different components and put it into different buckets, and you're able to accelerate the depreciation. Now, bonus depreciation, I believe this came into effect with Trump's tax cuts in 2017. It's basically where you take all the buckets, all the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15-year. I forget if there's any more than that, but you take all those buckets that have faster depreciation than the normal, 27 and a half year. If you're talking about residential, I believe commercial's 39 years, but you take those buckets and you're allowed to take all that depreciation that falls outside of the 27.5 year bucket, and you're able to take it in year one, which is crazy. So it just put cost segregation studies, it put that on steroids, where you're able to take these massive tax write-offs in year one and get a big quote unquote paper loss. And it goes, if you're an active investor, you can use that against, if you're an active real estate investor, I should say. And I'm going to throw the disclaimer out there. Always talk to your CPA.
Yes.
Don't take advice from me. I'm not a CPA. But how I understand it is that if you're an active real estate investor per the IRS, then you can take that depreciation and use it against active income, such as what you would earn as a house flipper, like I was doing.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Is that a
no?
good?
That's a great explanation. It's
okay,
just
good.
huge. I mean, it can really eliminate some of the taxes that you'll be paying when used properly. And like you said, it's not a lot of people look at these things and kind of from the outside looking in and think, well, people are cheating on their taxes or whatever. But as you pointed out, I mean, the IRS says that you should be taking these. And in fact, when you consider a property, for instance, of those buckets that you were talking about, there are things on properties that wear out faster. And that if you're going to keep that property up and keep it, optimal, you're going to have to be replacing these things out. So it's a good idea to know and to take that depreciation, because you will ultimately need to, replace some of those things. So
exactly.
Yep, but the bonus depreciation just makes it, where it can really, really make a huge advantage when it comes to how much are the taxes.
Going to your thing about how people say that, you're just cheating on your taxes. The first thing is, this is what the IRS laid out. It's the rule book that they did, and if someone's upset that that someone is following these rules, maybe they should do it themselves, and also there's this book I read, I think it's called Tax-Free Wealth. I forget who wrote it, but it's really good. And it just talks about how, the most patriotic thing you can do is not pay taxes legally, of course, because that means that you're doing all the stuff that the IRS wants you to do. They put these incentives in place to motivate behavior. They want people to own real estate. They want, active investment in certain areas. That's why there's opportunity zones and things like that. So, if you're getting a bunch of tax write-offs because of, taking advantage of those things, that means you're doing what they want you to do. So, that stuck out to me in that book.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I agree. And then so then from there you did some apartment deals. And then it sounds like you did some additional things like the a boutique hotel and the wedding venue. Tell me a little bit about those and what you learned from that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are those are fun. Those are cool properties. We've had some ups and downs with those, but they're really on a good track now. And hospitality is very, for people that like the that dopamine hit. I would say hospitality is a good space to be in because it's boom or bust, and
Yeah.
when they're making money, they print money, but when they're slow, they eat cash. So,
Right.
it's kind of both ends of the spectrum. So you have to learn that, you got to look at things over the course of a year because, our wedding venue, we don't do any weddings in the winter. So we sort of have to go into hibernation mode and everything slows down. We have less, it's a wedding venue and a hotel. So, everything slows down in the winter, but then come spring, we start doing weddings. We start getting the deposits that are owed to us for weddings that year. And, it starts to really ramp up and goes really well. So, having good systems in place, having a partner, or if you are the one operating it, being a systems oriented person is absolutely key. The partner that I have in that, he's great. Him and his wife do a wonderful job managing the wedding venue. We have a third party manager for the hotel, and they're awesome, super detailed, just really good about responding to guests, and they just have everything very, very systematized. And if you don't, then you're really going to struggle.
Wealthflow audience, pardon me for a quick interruption to today's show, but I have some exciting news that I want to be sure that all of our listeners are aware of. We just launched 3 totally unique to the market funds that are at the cutting edge of technology and AI. We have combined my 25 years of real estate experience and my recent work as VP of development for a tech company to bring 3 awesome investment options to our audience. For full details, go to our website at bobocapitalventures.com. Again, that is BOBO capitalventures.com. All right, back to the show. Yeah, that's good. That's interesting to hear that there's even the ability. I didn't realize. I guess I've seen it in some other hotels. There was a group that kind of will take over some. So I know they do third party management as well, but I just didn't really think about that from a boutique hotel standpoint. But it makes sense that they would. I mean, it's a different animal altogether, running a more of a business than just a real estate play.
Exactly. It's more of a business than it is just sitting back and collecting rent every month.
Yeah. Okay, so you've done a few of those, and really gotten a really great basis for investing, and have kind of decided or figured out that you're more from an appetite standpoint, like being able to lend out the money. You did a friends and family fund to begin with, and now have created a fund specifically for this. So tell me a little bit about how that works with, what type of investor are you lending to? Is it more on the fix and flip side, hard money loan type from that standpoint, or what is your bread and butter when it comes to that?
Yeah. So right now, I thought that we would have more fix and flip kind of guys that we're loaning funds to, but as of right now, we've actually had more guys that are using our funds to, buy up a dilapidated property that they're going to turn into a rental and refinance into. Usually, it's a DSCR loan. So that's a big piece. I like flips because there's a very clear and defined exit strategy, whereas a refinance, it takes a little bit more diligence on our part to just make sure that, hey, has this person done this before? Have they been able to refinance? Have they gotten a bank loan? If they have, then it's usually something that we'll entertain as long as the deal makes sense. But sometimes we have guys come to us and they're newer and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to refinance it once we fix it up. And people don't realize that refinancing is a lot hard. Even if you have a good deal, it's a lot harder than you think. There's always
Yeah.
twists and turns and things that come up, and if you haven't gone through that bank loan process or even DSCR, it's a little bit more. I'd want to see like a solid term sheet or something like that, because the exit is everything for us. We want to make sure that we're loaning funds out that we're going to get back within a certain amount of time.
Yeah. So tell me from that standpoint, how long of a duration are most of these loans? And, as much detail as you can give us, like, as far as a
Yeah.
loan to value, is there loan to, future value where you're including some of the repairs? What does the program look like?
Yeah, sure. So our typical loan product is a 9-month term. We have a couple 3-month extensions built in for a fee, and then we charge a 3% origination fee, a flat $700 doc prep fee, and the interest rate is 12%. It's just interest only. 12% is very easy to calculate. It's just 12, or it's just 1% per month, because if you divide 12% by 12 months, it's just 1%. So 1% of the loan amount is what they owe every month. And that's our typical bread and butter type of deal. I have this one guy who he comes to me about, I don't know, a couple months ago, and he's like, hey, I love you. We've loaned we've loaned a good amount of money to him even before this fund. And he's like, hey, I love you, but I hate paying your points. What can we do about that? So I just told him, I was like, hey, we have a certain return that we need to make on our money. Otherwise, we're just going to hold on to it and wait for a better opportunity. So, that's what I'm working with. We just had a very frank conversation. He told me what he was doing. I told him what I was doing and what we needed. And we came to a solution where we charge him no points. We still charge a doc prep fee, but we charge him no points and a higher interest rate. And it works for him because he's getting in and out of these projects really fast. He owns a construction company. He controls all that, and he's able to just get in and get out so fast. He's refinanced tons of loans, so he only needs this money for a month or two at a time. So for him, paying 3 points or even 2 points, it gets expensive. But for us, the points are how we increase our rate of return. So we were just able to come to a solution where we charge him a higher interest rate, and we end up getting the return that we need on our money, and overall he ends up paying a lower amount. So it's just it's a win-win for everyone. So it's cool being a hard money lender, because you can control, as long as you're not using institutional money, you can control what you do with it. You don't have to, you're not stuck inside this box that's very rigid. And I think that's very, very appealing to me.
Yeah.
And then your questions about, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's neat, and the fact that you're willing to work with them and to kind of customize the terms somewhat on this particular person, especially if they've got a track record and you've worked with them in the past. You can feel confident that it's not, it's somebody that you'll continue to be able to use, and they can continue to use your product as well, as long as it fits their kind of what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as your other questions about LTV and all that. So I'm very, hard money lending is asset based. It's asset based lending where our a big focus is the property. So that's going to be, first and foremost, we're going to look at the property, we're going to look at the deal. Does it make sense? Are we loaning money in a position where if everything hit the fan, there's a good likelihood that we're still going to end up either breaking even or getting out of it and making some money. That's how you got to look at it as an asset-based lender. But I put a ton of emphasis on, we're small enough to where, we're not like a national lender. We don't have scale problems where, you know, like I can still meet with and talk to borrowers and really get an understanding of who they are and what makes them tick. And there's a lot that you pick up from doing that, in my opinion, that you might miss if you're just running people through the machine and having them fill out a loan application, and
Right.
you don't really talk to them that much. You just look at their docs and their credit, and that's it. When you talk to someone and you meet with them face to face, or that's the best, but over the phone is good too. You can get a lot more information. You can hear their voice inflections. You can hear just things like that you can pick up on, and there might be some red flags that you catch, and I certainly have. And there are times
Oh yeah.
where talking to someone, and if not for me meeting them in person or talking to them on the phone, I don't know if I would have picked up on something that was ultimately a red flag. So I put a lot of emphasis on that, and the person that's doing the project. How competent are they? How experienced are they? Do they have a solid plan? Do they, because that's huge. Just ordering an appraisal. In my opinion, appraisals are completely useless in this space, because the variables that an appraisal doesn't take into consideration is the person. One person
Yeah.
might flip a property and have the ARV be, the after repaired value be a lot higher than somebody else who doesn't do as good of a job, or just cuts corners, or whatever. So I put a ton of focus on the person that is running the deal, and that has done us well so far. And then as far as ARV and loan to value, I like to be at 70% of the after repaired value or less. So right now our weighted average is, I believe, is 65% across 16 or 17 loans. So, that's a decent spot for us. And I should say that those ARVs are my ARVs. They're not necessarily the borrower's ARVs.
Right.
The lender is always going to be conservative. So,
Right. Right.
um, that's hopefully that gives you some context.
No, it does. It does. How about from a geography standpoint? Where are you lending right now?
Right now, we're hyper focused on the Richmond area. It's where I live. It's what I
Okay. Yeah.
know. We have a good, I used AI and did a pretty in-depth research report on the size of the market, just to understand, when we're going to be at capacity. And we have a long way to go before we're needing to look outside of this market. I talk to not just lenders, but real estate developers, investors, and a lot of them, it's the same story. The guys, the grizzled veterans, they always say that the ones that have gotten into trouble, a lot of times it's the same story, where they say, we started off here and then we got too big for our britches. We expanded down to Miami and to, South Carolina, and we
Yep.
went all up and down the East Coast. And when it got to the recession, everything was fine in our local area, but it was all the stuff outside of our market that caused us to struggle and stumble. And I've just heard that so many times, and it's really stuck in my mind. And it's caused me to really, if we're going to expand, it's going to be from our home base. We're not just going to pick a random market in Texas because it seems like a strong market or whatever. We're going to focus on where we're at, and we're going to branch out from there. And yeah, so that's how I think of things from a geographic standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And you're right. I mean, even just in interviewing folks on the podcast that are operators, a lot of times when they've gotten in trouble, it's either getting out of their geography area or maybe going from, a standard apartment syndication to we're going to do a office building conversion. I mean,
Exactly.
so all of a sudden you throw some complication in there, and even at the best intentions, things are going to come up, and so I think that makes a lot of sense to stick in your market when you can.
Yeah, and just staying with what you know. I mean, it's
Right.
it's like I'm just like everyone else, where you have this tendency to just try new things and go after the shiny object, and I've just learned over the years that sticking to your bread and butter and doing that over and over and just being an absolute master and expert in that is that's key, and that usually will mitigate a lot of unforeseen things that could come up.
Okay. And then what about on, when you're lending on something, tell us a little bit about kind of what that process looks like behind the scenes. If I'm somebody that's going to maybe be looking at fixing something and then doing a refinance, is some of it coming as the form of a draw after the initial purchase, and what checks and balances do you have in place to just make sure that, before you release additional amount of money, what they said they were doing got done, all of those things.
Yeah, we have a pretty awesome loan management portal software that we use. It's called Lender, Lendr. The founder is a hard money. He started out as a hard money guy and basically realized that this industry has zero tech in it. So he created this really cool product, and they're constantly adding new features, and one of them is draw management, where people are able to go in and, if it's a loan where we set up a draw schedule where we fund a certain amount at closing and then hold back funds to be released in 2 or 3 draws. They can go in and submit a draw request and upload videos. It tells them exactly what to do, the type of video to take. Make sure you get the address of the property and show us exactly what was done. And it's a pretty cool way to stay on top of that. And I looked today, and they're apparently coming out with some AI thing that verifies and confirms that work was actually done. I don't know how it does it. I don't know if it uses satellite imagery or what, but it looks really, really interesting. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's how we, as far as draw schedules go, that's how we stay on top of that. I'm not crazy about draws. I like people having skin in the game and putting money in themselves. But if it's a strong deal, then we'll do funds at purchase plus renovation costs as well.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And then what about where do you see your company going for the next, call it 3 to 5 years ahead? I mean, it's kind of sticking with the same plan. Are you looking at expanding, the reach, the projects, the type of loan? Any thought given to maybe coming out with a, conversion where you can go from you can be the refinance that holds the note in the long term on, say, DSCR or something, or just not attractive maybe because of the rates?
It's not because of rates. It's more just all the we just have to get a lot more infrastructure in place to be able to do loans like that and broker them to to the institutional guys. And you're just beholden to institutional capital when you get into that space. And, it's just a completely different ball game. Whereas right now it's our own money that we're lending out. We make the rules, and we don't have any institutional partner telling us what to do, or what box we need to fit inside, and I like that. I came
Yeah.
from the world of institutional money as a residential loan officer, and I just, I hated all the bureaucracy and all the stuff that goes along with being working for a large nationwide lender. And if we get into the DSCR space, it also kind of goes back to we're splitting our focus. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in the hard money space. It's really a niche that serves a void in the market where DSCR, which is a relatively new product, it doesn't it can't do what hard money does. People can't.
Yeah.
Guys can call us, they can send us a deal, and we can look at the deal, and if it makes sense and they're buying it at a good price, and we're lending funds at a conservative loan to ARV, then we can fund that deal in a matter of days. I mean, there's no institutional player that can do anything close to that. So that's pretty much what I just want to keep doing.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. How can people find out, Will, more about you, about if they want to um, utilize one of your loans? And then one thing we didn't talk about, maybe let's cover that piece of it first. So we're directing people where they can find out and inquire more about you and more about your products.
Yeah, they can go to my website, harvey-capital.com, or they can just shoot me an email, will@harvey-capital.com.
Okay, perfect. And then how about from an investor standpoint? Are you taking on additional limited partner investors? Is it mainly friends and family, or are you actively still looking at allowing other people to invest with you?
I'm doing both. I want to have
Okay.
conversations right now. The fund we have is not, I can't advertise it or anything like that. But I'm very close to doing a type of fund where I would be allowed to talk about it and publicly advertise it. But for right now, if anyone wants to get in touch, we can start the discussion and just go from there.
Okay. No, perfect. So it sounds like there's an opportunity from that standpoint. We've got a lot of investors as well that kind of listen to the show, and it's a good opportunity for sure. Because again,
Yeah,
from an investment standpoint, right? You're putting money into something, but it is backed with an asset. At the end of the day, and you're underwriting it, as you
that's right.
said, trying to get the 70, 75, whatever the percentage was, where, even if something went bad, you can at least get your money back out. So,
That's exactly right. That's what we try to do. First lien loans, residential 1 to 4 unit. That's our bread and butter.
awesome. Well, this has been awesome, Will. I've got a couple other questions for you that I ask every guest. One would just be any advice you would give somebody who's maybe just starting out in their investment journey?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would say, so for me, it took me a while to figure out, it was until 2023, early 24 when I really realized, hey, this is where I'm meant to be. This is, when I was flipping houses, that was great. We made a lot of money flipping houses, but it just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't my thing. And I like I said, I much rather I'd much rather be on the finance side and on the passive investing side of things, and I think that takes time to figure out what you like, what you don't like. It's probably going to take making some investments that you're going to realize that hey, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. I didn't really like that element of it, but I like this one, and over time you're going to figure out what what you like. It took me almost a decade of being in real estate. I had rentals, I did syndications, I did the hospitality projects and flips and all that stuff before I realized that I really like lending. I really like hard money, and I really like just just the finance side in general. We didn't talk about any of this, but I have another fund that we just a few months ago we started buying notes. We started buying discounted notes from people that go out and do seller financing. So we're marketing to them, and we're buying notes, and that's a really fun and interesting space for me. But a lot of people would be like, "Hey, that's the most boring thing I've ever heard. I would much rather, you're just buying paper. You're just buying a loan. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'd rather go out and flip properties and own rentals, and that's great. That more power to you. We loan money to guys that do that, and it's cool to vicariously live through them. But I don't have to be the one swinging hammers and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that's great advice. I think you don't know, and that I think getting started and going down one avenue, like you said, you may learn, hey, I don't like this, and you can mix it up. As we were talking earlier, there's just a million different things you can do in this space, and there's no one way. And so learning what you like, what you don't like, kind of will help you find that
Bingo.
space that sounds like you've found. So.
Yeah,
That's great. How about a book recommendation? Doesn't have to be real estate related or investment related. Certainly can be something you have read that's been impactful, though.
So the most impactful thing for me, it's a little bit of a curveball, but I think it would fit in the category of a book. It's Warren Buffett's annual letters. So starting in, I believe, 1977, that's when he started writing his annual letter for Berkshire Hathaway. Prior to that, you can find going back to the late 50s, you can get his letters from when he ran his first investment partnerships. And they are there is more wisdom and more knowledge in those letters than, in my opinion, than there would be in a 4-year degree, a business degree or something like that. I mean, he is just. He's the GOAT, when it comes to investing. And I think even if you're not doing what he's doing, he did a lot of stuff in insurance and through the stock market and buying railroads and just all kinds of stuff, buying wholly owned businesses. So even if you're not doing any of that, the philosophy, the mindset, just all that stuff that he talks about can be applied to really anything, not even investing. He's just a very wise human. And I just think that there's so much to be learned from his letters. He really poured his heart and soul into those letters, and you can see by reading them.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll have to check those out as well. I haven't had that recommendation yet on the show. So thank you, Will.
Yeah.
This has been great. I think we'll call it a show. Thanks for being on the Wealth Flow.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Keith.
All right. If you're still here, I assume that you found value in today's show and with the guests we interviewed. Please take a minute to subscribe and to review the show. It really helps. Also, wanted to remind you to check out Bobo Capital Ventures to get the first look at our 3 new cutting-edge, first-to-the-market investment opportunities. We have only about 15 spots for each fund for retail investors, and we would love, more than anything else, to have our audience be part of that group of limited partner investors. Thanks for listening to The Wealth Flow, and have a great day.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.